Good afternoon. I'm Shelley Jones, Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement here at Missouri State University. The Alumni Association is the organization through which Missouri State students continue their connection with MSU when they leave the university. The Alumni Association is a non-dues paying organization, so all of our alumni are viewed as members. So what are the BearTalks webinars? If you are new to our series, the BearTalks webinars are professional development sessions showcasing our fabulous Missouri State alumni. So how the webinar will work today, we can't see or hear you. Please make sure to use the Q&A feature to type in your questions. The session is being recorded and all of our registrants will receive a follow-up email on Monday from me with additional resources, contact information for our panelists, a brief survey, as well as the recorded link. Today, we are going to go ahead and open up the chat so we can have even further engagement. I know that Kim's been putting some questions out there already. So again, if you have questions for our panelists, make sure to use that Q&A feature for those. Unfortunately, due to time limitations, most likely we won't have enough time to get to all of your questions, but that's why in that follow-up email, we're going to provide you with our panelists' contact information. So today's session is entitled Build Momentum and Bounce Forward in 2022. Are you feeling stressed, overwhelmed, running on fumes? As we move into 2022, now is the time for us to refuel, recharge, and refocus. And to help motivate us to do just that are our fabulous MSU Bear panelists, Kim Becking and Jeffrey Benning. So how today's session will work, how we're going to format this, we're going to speak with each of the panelists individually, and then we'll use that last 15 minutes for our Q&A. So be thinking of those questions. And then also new today, we're going to select two randomly selected attendees to receive Maroon Nation spirit boxes full of lots of goodies. So let's go ahead and dive in with our first panelist, Kim Becking. Just a little bit about Kim first. Kim is a 1994 alumna of Missouri State University. She's joining us from Columbia, Missouri. She is on a mission to help organizations, teams, and leaders build a momentum mindset to rock change, boost resilience, and bounce forward no matter what life or work throws at them, even a pandemic. As a leading thought leader on thriving in the midst of change, you might have seen her on Good Morning America or read about her in People magazine or the New York Times. She's an engaging keynote speaker, human behavior expert, best-selling author, cancer thriver, recovering attorney, and a very proud Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie addict. So welcome, Kim. We are so excited to have you with us today.
Thanks so much, Shelley. I am so excited to be here. Quick question for you. As Shelley said, today's webinar is going to be a little bit different in that we want to make sure you are engaged in the chat, and I see you all already being engaged. But I have a question for you. How many of you have been on a boring webinar since the pandemic started? If so, give me a yes or an exclamation point in the chat right now, because I don't know about you, but I've been on lots of those. Yes, I'm seeing lots of exclamation points. This and today's format is not going to be one of those. So we want you to engage in the chat. We want you to give us questions in the Q&A function or put those in the chat as well. And we'll get to those throughout today's program at the end when Shelley comes back with both Jeff and I together. So another question for you right now. How many of you have felt like this recently? Maybe even today or this week. I know the last 2 years, really it seems like 2 decades, because 1 year in COVID year is really like a decade, has been a lot. There's been so much change, so much uncertainty, so much loss, so much craziness, right? That can get heavy. And burnout is at an all-time high. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to right now. People are overwhelmed, tired, spent, exhausted, burned out. So right now, I want you to give me in the chat one word about how you're feeling right now in this moment. One word. And then I want you to think about this. 1440. 1440. And I'm seeing a lot. Overwhelmed, spent, exhausted, tired. Yeah, and it's only January the 27th at this point. But every single one of you has 1440. Any guesses as to what that is? Put that in the chat if you have any guesses. 1440 minutes in a day. Yes, Christine and Jason, minutes in a day. Every single one of you gets to decide how you're going to show up. Your words, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude. Right now in this moment, as a leader, as a person in your community, with your families. Today, here, as you're engaging, your 1440 minutes, you have power, you have control over that. Even when the world right now and your world may feel heavy and may feel like you're in chaos. So today, we are going to focus on how you can continue to build that momentum to bounce forward. Because here's the reality, y'all dug deep over the last 2 years. You found resilience muscles you didn't even know you had. And now so many are exhausted and frustrated and at the same time, hopeful and excited. So we're going to give you some keys today on how you can continue to not just bounce back, because a lot of people talk about resilience, right, Shelley? And they talk about bouncing back. We don't want you to just bounce back. We want you to bounce forward stronger and better than before, to build what I call a momentum mindset. So Shelley, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we are going to get into some questions right now, and hopefully we can share. Oh, Christine, we need to know what kind of coffee I drink, Kim. Yeah, I just get excited. I want to be engaged with all of you. So Shelley,
you are
back to you.
certainly passionate about this topic, which we are so excited to learn from you. So, all right, our first question. There's so much uncertainty and change right now. How do you take control even when you feel out of control with so much now?
Yeah. So the first step is what I call resigning as general manager of the universe, not just of Missouri, but of the entire universe. Because here's the reality. You know, I'm a recovering attorney now. I don't practice law anymore. I'm a recovering political consultant. I'm in lots of recovery programs. But one of the things I realized even before the pandemic was I liked to control everything. And I was holding on so tight that it was literally killing me. You know, 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that taught me that life is to be lived, not controlled. How many of you like to control things? If so, give us an exclamation point or yes in the chat. And what has the last 2, now going on 3 years taught us? Sometimes we're not in control. So you have to learn to let go and resign, to let go of all the things you can't control. And I want to give you this tool. It's called the stop, shift, and reframe. So when you're dealing with all this uncertainty, when you're dealing with change, when you're dealing with things that you can't control, I want you to stop, shift, and reframe. And I want you to let go of all the things you can control. Literally make a list, all the things I can control, all the things I can't control. And then I want you to focus on the can and the now in this moment, to stop, shift, and reframe and focus on the can. Now, real quick, as a part of that too, just to give you an example of how this works, I want to take you on a ride right now. How many of you have felt like you've been on this roller coaster over the last couple of years? Now, you know, I don't like roller coasters. Sometimes when I get on them, my son, you know, he loves them. He encourages me to get on them, but I have to take a little Xanax to calm down. But right now, I want you all to put your hands out in front of me, unless you're driving. If you're driving, don't do this. But right now, I want you to put your hands out in front of you. I want you to pretend that you are on this roller coaster right now in this moment. Okay, I want you to hold on. You are on that front row. You are holding on tight. Here we go. Here we go. Are we ready? Are we ready? Woo! I want you to put your hands up and I want you to scream. Woo! Which felt better to you? Clenched fist or hands up? Put that in the chat. Which felt better to you? Clenched fist or hands up? Exactly, Becky. Hands up. Because letting go changes the whole ride. And that is a critical skill to be more adaptable, to be more resilient during this time with so much change and so much uncertainty.
Hands up. I'm all hands up too. Yes, hands up. So how do you continue to adapt to all of this ongoing change and uncertainty? How can we embrace change?
Yeah, well, the first step is, right, to put those hands up and to let go. But then it's this. How many of you have thought even this? And I hear this from so many clients right now, you know, or so many colleagues that I'm talking to. I can't wait to get back to normal. Anyone said that? I have news for you. There is no normal. There is no new normal. There's only what is now and what is next. And so I want you to start changing your mindset. I want you to really gauge, even where are you at? How do you deal with change and uncertainty? Because here's the thing, change that is forced upon us, we tend to fight and resist, right? Like, oh, we don't like this. But change that we choose is different. And now the world is going to be changing at a more accelerated pace than ever before. I have a little prop here I want to show you. Anybody have any guesses as to what this is? If so, put that in the chat right now. This was my first cell phone. My dad got this for me when I went away. Well, I went there when it was SMSU, but now we're Missouri State. I'm showing my age. Yeah, brick phone. And it was heavy. Yeah. So, you know, you could only use it in cases of emergency because it costs $10 a minute. Now, I know some of our younger folks on the call probably think this belongs in a museum. But think about how far we come. Think about how you've adapted from this to our cell phones to what we're wearing right here, right? So we don't mind change that we get to choose. It's change that's being forced upon us. So I want you to start thinking about how can you let go? And also, you know, where are you? Let's do just a quick poll on a scale of 1 to 10 on how do you deal with all of this change and uncertainty? Okay, so one to 3 is no. You fight it, you resist it. I don't want to do this. Okay, 1 to 3. 4 to 7, you are, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I wish I was the one pushing for it. I wish I understood more or why this was happening, right? 8 to 9, I like change. And 10, change rocks, bring it on. So where are you, right? We're seeing you all over. So it's important to have that self-awareness. That's an important first step when dealing with all this change and uncertainty. Have that self-awareness to understand where are you, and not only where are you, where's everybody around you? Where those you lead, where those you work with, where those, you know, if you're a student, you know, where are those in your class, where's your professor, right, Lacey? Depends on which changes, absolutely. So I want you to start thinking about that and how you really deal with it from that perspective.
All right. So let's talk about remaining positive in stressful and uncertain times. How do you stay positive and stay focused as a leader, as a person, when there's so much uncertainty and so much change? And what's the best way to push past limited and negative thinking?
Yeah, so, you know, we could do a whole hour on this, on each of these actually. But, you know, I think one of the things right now is, first of all, there is this toxic positivity out there. What I mean by that is no one's positive all the time, right? So it's not unicorns, it's not rainbows all the time, right? So it's what it is. However, you get to decide with your 1440 how you're showing up. So with your 1440, I don't mean saying that there's not hard and there's not challenges and there's not frustrations and there's not good reasons that you're overwhelmed. You know, all of those things and your loss and grieving and all of that. What I am saying is you get to decide. You get to decide how you're going to show up. And right now, I know, does anyone else feel like we're on an episode of Mean Girls? Anybody ever watch Mean Girls or feel like we're on an episode? If so, give me a yes or an exclamation point in the chat right now. Here's the thing. Everybody's stressed out. And so we have to learn to take a breath, to take a beat, and to give ourselves grace and to give everyone around us grace as well. Because we're all in the same storm right now, but we're all in different boats. And so where are you and where are those around you? I want to share, if it's okay, Shelley, I want to share something with you. And this is something that I've been giving out for almost 20 years now, since I was diagnosed with my breast cancer. When I was diagnosed with my breast cancer 20 years ago, my sorority sister and fellow MSU grad, Patty, gave me a 2-sided handwritten card. And I still have that card in my desk today. And this is all about to show up from that positive perspective. One of the most important things is to give yourself permission and grace and realize you are allowed right now in this moment to feel whatever it is you need to feel. And you all, shared a lot of those, but emotional intelligence and emotional agility right now, and really understanding where are you in that mental health is critical right now in this moment. So I'm going to read this to you because I think it's powerful. And it says, you are allowed to be sad, to feel helpless, to be tired, to be depressed, to be lonely, to be angry, to cry, to feel out of control, to feel overwhelmed, to feel scared, to grieve, to feel like no one can relate, to wish this never happened to you or to others, to feel behind, to wonder what if, to long for simple things and simple times, to wish for more. But on the flip side, and you turn the card over, and it says, you are allowed to find the good, to be grateful, to be loved, to be hopeful, to realize you are not alone, to find joy, to realize you are stronger than you ever thought, to laugh, to be surrounded by people who care, to find your grit, to give yourself grace, to do what you can, to learn to ask for help, to make a difference, to be you. Which side of the card are you on today? And this is a key to being resilient, to showing up as your best self, to give yourself that grace and permission. And right now, what we're seeing and what many of us are feeling, me included, I may be on both sides of the card at the same time. I'm exhausted and I'm excited, right? I'm overwhelmed and I'm ready for what's next. So it's okay to be on both sides of the card. It's okay to be on, I have teenagers, 3 teenagers. I feel like this all the time, right? I'm flipping back and forth. So for you, where are you? And not only where are you, where's everybody around you? Remember, same storm, different boats. Ask them, check in on them, connect with them. And this is a critical component to continue to boost your resilience. As a gift to you, by the way, I have a PDF version of that card that Shelly's going to be sending out with a recording from this, a PDF link that you can download this card. Feel free to share it, share it with colleagues, share it with your teams, share it with, if you're a student, share it with your classmates. However this can help you, this is my gift to you. Shelly.
All right, which that goes well into our next question. So how do I make the time to refuel and recharge and take care of myself and my own mental and emotional well-being when I have so much to do and not enough time?
Yeah.
And how do you find that balance between work and home, yet still be successful?
Okay, first of all, there is no such thing as balance. Even before the pandemic, there was no such thing as balance. It is work-life integration, work-life blend. We're one person, right? What affects us at work affects us at home and vice versa. And now the lines are more blurred than ever, right? With so many hybrid or some still doing virtual remote work. So, our workplace has changed. And so for you, first off, it's learning to put yourself first, right? And you've heard that saying, if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. I like that as a mom. But if you're not healthy, you can't take care of anyone else. I have a question for you. What do you do when your cell phone battery goes on 10%? What do you do? Put that in the chat. What happens? Most people say first, exactly, Alyssa, freak out, right? I freak out. I say, and then I charge it, right? So for many of us, we're recharging our phones more than we're recharging ourselves. We're recharging our phones more than we're recharging ourselves. So you have to learn to let go of the guilt, to give yourself the permission to focus on doing things for you, to use your 40 minutes. We know all the things we should be doing. We know what we should be doing from a self-care perspective, but you are the only one that can control making that happen. So what are the boundaries that you need to be setting? What are the things that refuel you? Make your own list of your resilience toolkit. What's in it? How many of you have worked during lunch? How many of you sit at your desk longer than an hour without getting up? We all do these things, and we all know we shouldn't be. Exactly, Michelle, every single day. So you have to learn how to build in habits and practices so that you can do it. You also have to learn, right, how to say no. I have my own no button. Saying no allows you to say yes to what really matters. So how can you start prioritizing what needs to happen? And remember, not focusing on all the things, because if you start focusing on all the things, that's when your overwhelm is going to set in. How do you focus on the most important thing the next thing, and what really matters. And I have lots more tips that, we can share on energy, because it's also about energy management and who you surround yourself with, energy management, time management, work-life blend. But I know we're running short on time, so I want to be respectful of that. Shelley?
Kim, oh my gosh, our 20 minutes just like zapped away. I can't believe it. All right, well, again,
I'll be on at the
Yes.
end. So if you have
Yes.
questions, start putting those in the Q&A, and I'll see you all here again in a few.
Okay, yes, put the questions in the chat, in the Q&A, and then your chat, because we won't see them if they go in the chat, because that chat is like blowing up. So yes, and we need to figure out, Kim, I know you're out there still, let us know where you got your no button, because we definitely need to all have a no button.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you, Kim, so much for joining us. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to our next presenter, Jeffrey Benny. Jeffrey is a 2005 alumnus of Missouri State University, where he received his BFA in musical theater performance. He is a Salt Lake City-based ultra runner, ultra marathon, like hardcore thing, motivational speaker, actor, singer, and comedian. He grew up on a farm, I think it was a pig farm, and he doesn't eat meat, in Laredo, Missouri, before moving to Brooklyn, New York, and later Los Angeles. He has an award-winning hybrid film out there called Once is Enough, chronicles his journey after losing his mom to obesity-caused heart disease. He's, as a new runner, the film follows Jeffrey as he trains for one of the most difficult 100-mile ultra marathons. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And we have lots of other things we're going to talk about. So, okay, so let me just get this straight. You are not athletic, and you decide that you are going to go run 100 miles, not just like the little local 5K at the Y or anything like that. We're going to go big or go home. So what a big, hairy, audacious goal. So as a new athlete, what made you decide to run a 100-mile ultra marathon?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. My mom was diagnosed with heart failure when I was around 11, 12 years old. And when I was around 30, her health really started to decline. And near the end of her life, she had an operation that we knew was really risky, but it didn't go well. And so she was in the ICU for 3 months, and I was essentially living in the ICU waiting room for those 3 months. And I was living in New York at the time. I was 340 some pounds, was finding success as an actor, but could not possibly have been less healthy. And in the waiting room of the hospital, there was, they had tons of subscriptions to these obscure magazines. And one of them, there was a trail runner magazine. And I just kept picking it up over and over again. And I'd read an article here and an article there. And one day we had a particularly bad hospital day. We got some pretty rough news. And on a whim, I just went out and bought a pair of running shoes and went for a run. And I was almost instantly hooked. I think because it was so playful, I felt like a little kid running through the woods, like leaping over logs, and I was filthy. It was so muddy. And, you know, for that like 47 minutes that I was out there, I didn't think about what was going on in my life. And it's not quite as dramatic as it sounds. I started with a 20-mile race. I did a 20-mile ultra marathon, which isn't an ultra marathon, a 20-mile trail race. And then I loved that. And I was like, oh, let's do a 50K, which is 32 miles. And then I went for a 50-miler. And when I did the 50-miler, I had the idea of, gosh, can you imagine if I could move this husky ginger body 100 miles? But 50 miles was going to be the litmus test. Like if it went well, if I still enjoyed running after that, then I could let myself sign up for a 100-miler. And obviously the 50-miler, it didn't go well, but I finished it and I had a good time. And so I set my sights on a 100-miler. So I didn't quite go from couch to 100 miles, but I did do it probably a little faster than anybody should.
Yeah, you were definitely on the accelerated program. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jeffrey, were you athletic as a child at all?
No, I was a definite indoor kid. I was chubby my entire childhood. I was forced to play some sports, but I despised it. I remember once in middle school, my basketball coach took me out of the game and set me on the bench and said, I wasn't even trying. I was barely running up and down the court. And he took me out and said, look, Jeffrey, I'll put you back in the game when you tell me that you want to play basketball. And I never went back in the game. My mom was furious after, but I said, you taught me not to tell a lie. So here we are.
There you go. So just because this is like a very foreign world, this ultra marathon, and I'm thinking to me and probably maybe several others on here. So what kind of training is involved with running an ultra marathon? And did you incorporate help from others? And also, let's see, my other questions there. When you're on a run of this magnitude, what on earth goes through your mind over that many hours of time, and what keeps pushing you forward? So any or all those you can answer.
Yeah, well, there's kind of, there's two components to ultra running. There's the physical component, which is a little easier to harness and control and plan. And then there's the emotional part of an ultra marathon, which is a much tougher beast to tackle. Physical training, it's all about the long runs, back-to-back long runs on the weekend. When you're training for a 100-mile ultra marathon, most people would never run over maybe 30 miles max at a time during a training run. And it's just because you end up negating the benefits of doing a longer run by how long you have to rest afterward. Because when you do, 50, 60, 70 miles, you need days. I'm essentially crippled for a couple days after that. So it's all about the back-to-back long runs on the weekend. So on Saturday, you go out, do 20 to 30 miles, and then you have to force yourself to get out of bed, get back onto the trail on Sunday, and do maybe a little bit less, but essentially that same distance. During the week, you're doing some shorter runs and hills and intervals and things, but it's really about those weekend back-to-back long runs. But the emotional part is so much more complicated. I know that I've learned so many really, really valuable transferable skills from ultra running. And that's what my talks are all about. In fact, my most popular talk is called Smart Enough to Start, but dumb enough not to quit. And I feel like that's kind of the overall life lesson that ultra running has taught me is, when you get to that point emotionally where any normal, reasonable person would quit, you're dehydrated, you're starting to hurt, maybe you have a blister that's bleeding. I mean, any reasonable person would say, okay, cool, this is it. Like, had a great run, let's go home and heal. But when you're training for an ultra marathon or running one, you just have to stubbornly refuse to stop. And some really magical stuff happens when you do refuse to stop. It turns out, you can have some water and in a few minutes, you're no longer dehydrated. Turns out a lot of those aches and pains go away. It turns out you can tape a blister and probably get another 30 miles out of your heel. And it's so eye-opening, or it was so eye-opening for me because I had never pushed myself that far. And the thing is, it's not relegated to ultra running. I think in every capacity, how many, put in the chat if you've ever quit something because it got hard. If the chat is not blowing up, we have a webinar full of liars, because it is, it's so difficult at times to just keep pushing when it's almost illogical. But it turns out like that's where the magic happens. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're running down the trail, launching a new business, investing in something for your children. It doesn't matter what the project, that theme is useful, at least for me in my everyday life.
Yeah. So let's talk about like asking for help. I know in your case, you brought on a trainer or something. So I know you were at a pretty fast pace to get from just starting to run to where you wanted to be. So that was good that you recognized that you might need a little help with that.
Yeah. Oh, Christy just posted in the chat that she just watched my film and didn't realize that it was me on here. Well, thank you for watching. And with that, I just totally spaced and forgot your question.
About asking for help.
Oh, yes.
And a trainer, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so vital to know your limits and be able to accurately assess what you can and cannot do. Self-awareness is such an important skill in life, in the workplace. But I knew that I needed help. I knew that I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not coming from a place of fitness. So one of the first things I did was hire a trainer. And I got lucky to land, he doesn't anymore, but at the time he held the record for the fastest 100-mile time in US history. I think it was like 9 hours and something. I can't imagine, but I was so lucky to bring him on. But I have to be honest, there were so many capacities, so many parts of the filmmaking process where I didn't do that as well, where I totally overestimated my abilities. Color grading was a good example. Color grading is a part of filmmaking that happens near the end. And if it's really good, you don't notice it. And it's just because like every camera at every angle at a different time of day will have a slightly different look to it. And so color grading is number one, fixing all of those shots to look the same. And then you might be adding some special effects and stuff onto it as well. But during the filmmaking process, I was like, this is a documentary. I can totally do this myself. So I spent weeks learning how to color grade. I mean, I dove in. I was not super arrogant about it. I put in a lot of work trying to learn. And it took about 2 days of me color grading to say, I can't do this. I can't do this to my standards. And so, I immediately reached out and found someone to hire. So it's just so vital to know your limitations, know when to ask for help. It's a game changer.
So when you were in this run, this big, huge, long run, did you ever doubt yourself along the way? And were there insecurities there? And how did you kind of push through those?
Oh, yeah. I mean, every run, any ultra marathon or training run is an absolute emotional roller coaster. Sometimes there are physical things that can be causing it. I've learned that my blood sugar is really, really directly related to my mood. There were so many times when I would start considering to quit early, like it's just not happening today. This isn't going well. I might even start getting grumpy about personal like things or arguments I had with someone. You know how we replay, oh, well, I wish I would have said so-and-so. I could just tell my mind would be going south, going towards negative thoughts. And then I would eat something, stop, take a break, eat something, have some orange juice, whatever. And suddenly it was gone. And it took me a while to find that correlation. But sometimes there are obvious actual causes for it. But I think most of the time, it's just finding the willpower to keep moving. Again, the analogy I think works for so many environments outside of ultra running. But when things got really hard for me, there were three things that worked most effectively for me to reframe my thoughts, get myself into a more positive mind space, and move down the trail. The first one was preparing for battle, is what I call it. Just being prepared for the most likely culprits that are going to slow you down. In my instance, carrying a sugary granola bar, because I know that might happen. One time, my nephew, I was running an ultra marathon, and my 3-year-old nephew had written a little good luck note and put it in my hydration pack, and I didn't know it. And they told me at like mile 40 when I was about to quit. So I keep that in my pack. And there was one time I was sitting on the side of a trail on a log, crying for no good reason. I just hurt. I just hurt, and I wanted to stop. And I pulled that out, and within minutes, I was back on the trail. A New York Times study actually showed that the biggest indicator of whether or not someone would be able to keep a New Year's resolution was how well they had prepared for it, how well they had prepared for all of the culprits that were most likely to stop them. So I think being prepared is the most important. Number two, loving your critic. There was, when I had this crazy idea, there was a friend who runs triathlons who I couldn't wait to tell. I knew he was just going to be absolutely ecstatic to hear that I was doing this. And I told him my idea, and he kind of sat there for a few seconds in silence. And finally he said, you know, Jeffrey, I don't want to rain on your parade, but, you know, like when you go to horse races, there's a reason why you don't see any Clydesdales there. And I mean, he's a good friend. He meant it, I think, probably well, but I just instantly was on fire. And I thought of that conversation over and over and over again when things would get hard on the trail. And I have had so many friends who have heard that story and have also harnessed the power, the fire that is built in somebody when somebody tells you that you can't do something or that you shouldn't be able to do something. So really harnessing that and using it for good was really, really, really effective for me. And then I think, you know, hands down, the most important thing to stubbornly refusing to quit is to know your why. Why are you doing it? And not, oh, you know, I want to start this business because we could use some side cash, or oh, wouldn't it be fun to write a book? I keep going back to money. I just think it's the worst reason to do things. You know, oh, maybe I'll make some cash off of this book if I write this book. In my opinion, those whys are not deeply enough rooted in your soul to fuel you through those moments of doubt when you want to quit. What is more substantial is you know, my why, for instance. I was desperate to not end up in the same situation as my mom, and I would have done anything, something as crazy as run 100 miles. Same with the filmmaking process. Everyone asks questions about, oh, what's it like to run ultra marathons? That sounds crazy. But, you know, arguably the filmmaking process was the longer marathon, the more difficult marathon. I really underestimated that. And if I hadn't had the really strong why of, you know, this film being entirely devoted to my mother, to celebrating her, to helping me process the loss, if I hadn't, you know, had that really significant why, I would have quit so many times. I can think of at least 7 gigantic brick walls that were thrown up right in front of us. And there's 0% chance that I would have even attempted to chip away at them if I hadn't, you know, can you imagine giving up on this project? What a failure to my mother, to her aunt. You know, there was no opportunity for me to quit. And that was, again, so useful. So I think my 3 things for not quitting anything: preparing for battle, loving your critic, and knowing and identifying your why. So I kind of went off on a tangent, but hopefully that answered the question.
I don't even know what the question is. I'm just so in tune with what you're saying. I'm like, okay, I don't even know what any other questions are. So, well, I know one of the challenges that you faced also was in funding this documentary too. You had some challenges there and pushed through those. You want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, you know, as things go in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time, funding and an opportunity for a studio to greenlight the project almost literally fell in my lap. Just as fast as it came, it went. A few weeks later, the studio they were primarily a video game studio. They were sold to some Japanese company who bought it for the video game component, had no interest in the film department. So all of that fell through literally within a matter of 3 weeks. We had started assembling a team, and I just went to all of those people. Another great reason why knowing your why and having a really good why can be beneficial. I went to all of the people we had started to assemble and said, hey, look, that was the budget. The budget is now 0, or whatever I can scrounge up from my savings account and an Indiegogo campaign. I totally understand if you can't be a part of it. If you do still want to be a part, great. I just, want to be super transparent in terms of the budget. And luckily, every single one of them, a lot of them were friends. Every single one of them said, yes, this sounds so fun. We're so moved by the story. We'll figure it out. And so many people were able and willing to work on, little to no or deferred pay. So it was a really tough go of it. And it's not super financially lucrative. I don't remember the statistic. I think it's somewhere in the high 90s, 96, 97% of independent films never recoup their money. Most don't even come a little bit close. And it sounds silly, but I think in terms of the film, the biggest celebration that I've had was the day that we recouped our money. That is a colossal achievement for, in my little world. And I think, again, if anyone out there is considering filmmaking, don't do it for the money. I think there's a lot of better reasons to do things.
Yeah. So tell us the name of the film. And then I know when we send the follow-up email, we're going to link to your site so people can find out how they can watch it. And
Yeah.
and then also it's from a quote, and tell us why that is so important to you.
The title of the film is Once Is Enough. It's available on Amazon and Roku Plus and Android devices and some other places. But you can find more about it at JJB, my initials, .life, L-I-F-E. So it's www.jjb.life. But the name of the film is Once Is Enough. And I fell in love with that name for this project because as expected, everyone assumed that the title meant running a 100-mile ultramarathon once is enough. But the very last line of the film is a quote by Mae West. That's actually where the title comes from. And I've loved this quote since I was a little kid. Her quote is, "You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough." Love that quote.
That's awesome. That's
so
awesome.
Trying to do it right, aren't we all?
Yes, yes. And so I want to go back just a little bit. You were talking about your naysayer. You wanted to talk about the Clydesdale or whatever.
Yeah.
So I know you've got the inner naysayer and you've got the outer naysayers. When you announce this big goal and you're motivated and you don't quite get the feedback that you expect, what do you say to them?
Well, nothing. I think you can't give them too much air, too much space. I think you just have to, which is tough, but I think you have to be confident enough in yourself to say, okay, all right, that's not what I was looking for, but they don't know what I know. He didn't know how determined I was. He didn't know how hard I had worked the 4 months prior to that to run a 50-miler. He doesn't know what I know, so I couldn't expect him to come to the same conclusion. And what, at least for me, there are few sensations that I enjoy more than proving someone wrong or society wrong and doing something that I shouldn't be able to do. I freaking love it. I shouldn't have been able to produce and sell this film on my own. I shouldn't have been able to run 100 miles. I shouldn't have left the pig farm in Missouri to move to New York and prance about on stage. I love defying what people or society thinks that I should be doing, and that really fuels me.
That is fabulous. Yes, yes. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and bring Kim back on here. Please make sure to put your questions in the Q&A. We have a few. I know we had some also that were pre-submitted. So, okay, let's see.
And Shelley, while you're looking at those, could I build on something Jeffrey said?
Yes, yes, please.
So when particularly, right, and I think you even referenced it. So we all have that inner critic, right? What I call my inner bully. And here's one quick tip. So my inner bully, her name is Edna. I want you to name your inner bully, because naming your inner bully takes away their power. And then you can have those conversations and say, not today. So share the name of your inner bully if you've got it. And then for the external bully, right? Because we will all have those people who don't believe in us, who didn't believe in Jeffrey and his dreams and believe that he could do it. what Jeffrey said about not giving them that satisfaction and doing it anyway. You know, I think back to my high school guidance counselor who told me I wasn't college material. I couldn't come to Missouri State, you know, because no one in my family had been to college. I grew up on a farm in a trailer, right? She labeled me. So I then went to college. I went to law school and I sent her an invitation to my law school graduation. And my inner bully, her name was Edna. That is my high school guidance counselor, right? So it all comes back. So for you, it's not letting those people, right? To Jeffrey's point, love your critics, prove them wrong, and also make sure that you are surrounding yourself with the right people, because who you surround yourself with matters from a community standpoint.
Yes, Edna.
Stop.
She's the worst.
Oh, we hate the Ednas. All righty. Jeffrey, pre-submitted question. What is your go-to strategy for getting through long runs? I've only done a half, but I'd like to go further. Also, they added, how did you get to be so amazing? So answer both.
I don't know the answer to the second one. We'll have to discuss whether that's true or not. Going back to those same three things, I mean, I think that's what worked for me was almost kind of playing mind games with myself, whether it was, harnessing, the words of my friend who were not super supportive. I also I visualized finishing so many times. I so many times would daydream about like, oh, what will it be like? What will I feel like when I cross that finish line? What will it sound like when everyone's cheering for me? And that was really, really powerful as well. I think something I haven't mentioned yet, though, that is important across the board is, well, you need to stay driven and motivated and hold yourself accountable for meeting deadlines and producing, things that are moving you forward. I think it's also really, really important, especially with runners, to have grace for yourself. I see so many people, runners, self-sabotage themselves because they obsess over small failures that in the holistic view of the situation don't matter. So you cut one run short. So what? It's so what? You'll make it up another day or you won't make it up. And that likely will not be the deal breaker in your next run. But even if it is, as long as you're doing what you can do right now, that's all that anyone can ask of you. So I think being gentle with yourself and not beating yourself up when you need to adjust things is really vital as well. And that wasn't an easy lesson. That took me a good 3 years before I stopped, again, crying with low blood sugar on a log on the side of the trail because I only ran 23 instead of 26 miles. Like,
yeah.
Looking at it now, I can realize how silly it is, but in the moment, you don't have that outward view of yourself. So I think be graceful with yourself.
And it is like to build on that, it is all about the grace, right? Like some nights my kids had Fritos and Thin Mints for dinner, and that's okay because we're all doing the best we can where we are. And a part of that grace is also not comparing ourselves to anyone else, right? It's running your own race and where you are and using your gifts, surrounding yourself with the right people, and then not quitting, right? Like I call it gritting up. So when things get really hard, you got to keep moving, but sometimes it's one little baby step forward and 2 steps back and you're doing the cha-cha. And that's okay. Just keep moving and grit up. Don't give up and don't let others, right, define your success. All the rejection letters that I got from publishers for my first book, right? No. I didn't give up. So for you, right, just continue moving forward and grit up. Even if you wanted to run 5 miles today and you ran 1, celebrate that. That's a key to bouncing forward and boosting your resilience, is celebrating the little wins along the way as well.
Yes. All righty, let's see. Oh, Jeffrey, I hear that you've been putting your dance skills that you learned at MSU as a musical theater major to good use on Instagram and TikTok. So I heard that you went viral recently, so you must tell more about this.
There was there's a trail here near Salt Lake City that I love running on, and there's a long wooden bridge on the trail, and every day that I would run over it, I would like look around to see if anyone was watching, and I would like very briefly do a small reenactment of the bridge scene from Dirty Dancing when she's trying to learn to dance on the bridge. And I decided to film it, take my equipment up up the mountain and film it, and I made the very brave choice to put it on TikTok and Instagram. And yeah, I think it's at like 6.5 million views right now. I think it's new to be to be known as the dude who embarrasses himself in the woods for others' pleasure. So I've been making a ton of them, and I think going back to having grace for yourself, I think so many people forget to have fun on the trail. I have so many friends who have cried because mountain summits didn't go as planned on backpacking trips and stuff, and I certainly understand that, but I just how could we possibly, who cares? How could we possibly be upset right now? Look where we are, what we're doing. So I've been making more of them, hopefully just to remind everyone to have fun out there. That's what it should be about. At the end of the day, like, nobody cares whether you beat your PR or whether you ran further than yesterday. Like, don't forget to have fun.
So here's what I would challenge them to do. Take Jeffrey's videos, right, on Instagram and use those as a part of what I call your laugh file. So a key to building that resilience is also laughter and having fun and joy. Like, I have my clown wig, I have my pink drumstick, right? Like, things that will make you laugh. Create a folder of funny memes, funny videos like Jeffrey's, right? Have your laugh file on your computer, on your phone, and on those hard days where, or maybe it's even a few days where you realize you haven't had any fun, you haven't laughed today, you haven't found joy today. What's on your list? What's going to do that for you, and create that for yourself?
Absolutely. It's all about having fun, So Kim, in your bio, you credit much of your career and life success to the foundation laid at Missouri State. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would go back to college in a heartbeat. I loved my college experience. So, I think it was laying the foundation in many ways. I think it wasn't just the academic piece, although I had amazing professors and I still keep in touch with some of them. And Dr. Alice Barty, I don't know if anyone had her. She was amazing. And I used those skills when I went to law school. Love Dr. Barty. So, so there's that aspect. And then for me, there was also, I worked in student life. I was university ambassador. I was on the alumni board. I was homecoming queen, but that, who cares about that, right? But all of those things. And then I was also a part of Greek life. And, I have friends from college, actually Jason Parman I know is on here. I don't know who else is on here, but, friends from college that we still stay connected, thank goodness for social media, right? But I have other friends and those foundations that have helped me in my business, that have been there when I had my cancer, during my hardest times, right? That have celebrated with me and that have been at my lowest of lows. And I think it's all of that foundation and really utilizing the networks that you created and the relationships that you created, in addition to, yes, the academic portion as well. That for me has been everything.
How about you, Jeffrey? Anything to add to that about your college experience? I hear you're connected to a few theater people, right?
Yeah, a lot. I had a great college experience. I was so excited to move to New York City, but I remember immediately missing the comfort that comes with Springfield and knowing where things are, and everything's so much easier. Life is a little slightly less complicated than in New York. I missed it almost immediately, but the theater department has a really strong alumni community, partly because it's called a showcase. So every year the seniors go to New York and LA and they do a showcase. It's just a quick performance. They invite agents, and the whole goal of it is to find an agent before you move. And the theater department ties that in with a huge celebration. So all the old alumni comes back. So I'm still in touch with, you know, all of my closest friends from the years surrounding me. In fact, I got an email this morning. I think I saw somebody ask what my day job is. I do operations for a tech company. And Jessie Anderson, if you know her, she just sent me another friend that I don't know who's an alumni as well, who's looking for a job that we're hiring for. And so we're still very much connected.
All right. Well, okay, let me see. I think we need to move on. I've got, if you had like 30 seconds, we're going to do our drawings here. I've got our announcement for our winners and some other stuff I want to say, but I want to give each of you 30 seconds for last thought. Last piece of inspiration. Kim, you don't have your mic on, so you hit it first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and Vicki said this, it's so easy to talk ourselves out of things, right? Having self-awareness, you know, really identifying what's holding you back, what's keeping you stuck, setting boundaries, which we didn't really get into today, but I would encourage you all to get a not to-do list. We all have to-do lists. We all have, you know, so much to do and not enough time. What's on your not to-do list? How can you start setting boundaries for yourself? And then in the end, to boost your resilience and to continue to be able to bounce forward, make sure you find laughter, joy, hope, connection, grit, and stay focused on your why.
All right, Jeffrey, your last 30 seconds of wisdom.
So, you know, I talk a lot about not quitting, but just as hard is starting, right? So I want to spend the 30 seconds that I've already used half of talking for just like a really quick exercise. I want everyone to think, what is your thing? That thing that you've always wanted to do that you haven't done, you probably aren't sure if it's possible. Like, what's the thing? Everybody has one. So a few seconds of awkward silence while you imagine yours. Cool. Now, what is one thing that you could do today in less than 5 minutes that moves you one tiny step closer to that? What is that thing? Maybe it's sending an email to someone to get a ball rolling, asking a friend for coffee to throw the idea out and get some feedback. It can be as tiny as can be. What's one thing you can do today in under 5 minutes to move you a little bit closer?
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Do that today.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you still going?
No, that's it. Just
Okay.
do that thing. Whatever came into your mind, do it today, and do another one tomorrow and another one tomorrow. And in a few weeks, you're going to be 2-3 hours closer to that.
Okay. Those are some great tips. Okay. Before we wrap up our session, we'd like to give away our very cool Maroon Nation spirit boxes filled with some fun swag to a few of our randomly selected attendees. So congratulations to Amy Feistel and Dustin James. So you two are winners. I'll connect with you after. So woohoo! So thank you, panelists, so much. This has been such an inspiring and motivating session, and hopefully everyone else throw those comments out there in the chat about how you thought today's session went. You'll also have a chance in the survey too. But we really hope that you enjoyed what you heard today and you're leaving with some really great takeaways and feeling as inspired as I am. So as the Alumni Association starts back with more of our in-person events, we are going to be moving BearTalks, our speaker series, to more of a quarterly basis rather than the monthly basis to keep our sanity. So our next webinar is not scheduled until Wednesday, May 11th. From noon to 1 Central. We'll showcase some terrific alumni panelists during our session entitled Living the MSU Public Affairs Mission. So registration for that session will begin in April. So watch for your email. So thank you again, panelists, audience. Thanks so much for all the chat. I love all this engagement that I've been seeing. I don't even know, I think it was over 200 pieces of engagement. So that's fabulous. So thank you for participating, and everyone have a great afternoon and go Bears. Bye-bye.
Everyone.